On this Andy's Auto Sports Short, we're going to talk about lower control arms, in particular these ones from Hotchkis, and later on we're going to install them for you on our Firebird. Now, what a lower control arm does is it basically locates the rear end inside the chassis and holds it in place. It also controls pinion angle, which makes a huge difference when it comes to traction. So, now that you know what a control arm is, why should you replace your factory unit with an aftermarket performance one? Well, the factory unit isn't as rigid as a performance one, and it flexes more. That flex actually robs horsepower from getting to the ground. When you tighten up your suspension, it actually gets more of that horsepower to the tires. After you put a set of aftermarket performance control arms on, you're definitely going to feel it accelerate better and know more of those horses are getting to the ground. Hotchkis control arms are put to the test like all their components. Now, their control arms are fully boxed to control flex and really get that horsepower to the ground. They have greasable urethane bushings, and they're available for most American muscle cars and select Highline imports. Now let's install these babies on our Project Firebird. Okay, we're under the rear of our Firebird. Of course, this is the rear differential here. What we're going to do now, I have raised up the body off the suspension just a little bit. I've relieved some tension so that our control arms are free. Now we're going to be removing this bolt, and we're going to remove this bolt from the front of the control arm. That's going to drop our control arm down. Then we're going to replace it with our new Hotchkis bar. Okay, here is our factory rear control arm from our Firebird. Now, as you can see, it is just basically a U-channel. This is just a piece of metal that's folded over. This is very flexible, gives quite a bit. When you compare it to our Hotchkis, this is what I meant when I was talking about it being fully boxed. Absolutely no comparison. This will absolutely stop all the flex, putting all that power to the ground. And then when we get into the bushings, you can see how that is. That's the factory bushing that goes in there compared to this urethane bushing from Hotchkis. So a couple of tips when you're installing your control arms on your Trans Am. Now, these right here are mounting holes for a sway bar. Now, the Trans Am mounts a little bit differently, but these go towards the back. The bushings there are two different types of bushings. So the front one is the solid bushing, and then the back one is this here. Now, before I push this in there, I put a little bit of grease in there or a little bit of silicone. That'll help that bushing go up in there pretty easy. Then you just line your bolt up and pop that one through. And this one's already has a little silicone on here too. This one might need a little bit of encouragement with a hammer here to get her up in there, but this will pop right up in here. If you're going to use a hammer and tap it into place, you want to make sure that you don't hit your grease zerk because it will break right off. All right, now we're going to go ahead and tighten our bolts and grease our grease zerks and go for a ride. Okay, so there you have the basic installation and the ins and outs of the Hotchkis rear control arms for the Firebird. We hope you've learned something today, and we'll see you on another Andy's Auto Sports Short.